and the water now. So the ashram was being overtaken by the water, and now literally there's a big sandy beach in between us and the flow of the river. Amazing. So of course everybody's very joyful, very, very happy. People try to call Guruji. And it was Sampurna Anandama who was talking to him. And she started, Baba, Baba, the river. And he said, listen. Don't tell me what Mother Ganga does. I know Ma. I know what she does. And he hung up. So, Baba is always with the devotees. Baba knows what's going on. He knows our troubles. He knows our plights. We need to have no worries. We need to have no anxieties. I told you at the beginning of the talk, one who has come at the beginning of our series of talks, one who has come under the protection of a realized master need have no anxiety about spiritual progress or, by the way, anything else. So it's quite beautiful. And so I wanted to then, so you might say, very good, that's nice, thank you. You've given us talks on the qualifications of the disciple. You've given us talks on the path of discipleship, the path of following. You've talked about the grace of the Guru, and you've talked about what can go wrong. We've spoken about some values that transformed Sri Gurudev from disciple to enlightened master, and how we can use that to spur our own spiritual progress. And we've talked about calling the Guru from afar. There's one more topic I would like to talk just a little bit about, and that is the possibility of discipleship. The whole reason why I wanted to talk about this topic was we have so many beautiful books by realized masters talking about how they were disciples, or their disciples have been good disciples, and those people happen to be realized as well. But for those of us helpless beings floating around in samsara, is it possible for us to be disciples? Is it possible for us to feel the Guru within? Is it possible for us to manifest that love of the Guru? My loving friends, I have looked far and wide amongst just our Kriya community. And I can tell you absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, it is perfectly possible. There are beautiful examples of great disciples, and I wanted to share some of those examples with you. There are some beautiful disciples in this room as well, some of my favorite ones. But I won't embarrass them, or probably me, by talking about them. So I'll talk about people who you might know or you could come to know from around our community. But I won't speak about people who are here. Not to think that it's because there aren't great disciples here. Some of the greatest are here in this room. So, but I won't embarrass them or me by talking about them. I don't think I would be able to in their presence anyway. So let me tell you first about our beautiful Swami Guru Priyanandama. Guru Priyanandama, did anybody not meet her? Hands up if you didn't meet her. So many of you will know some of these things, but I'm happy to be able to share with you something of her. Guru Priyanandama, for me, she was a great disciple. And what she really managed to do was, I see her as an incarnation of Baba's ceaseless work. So in every stage of Ma's life, whether she was in family life, she had children, she had a series of quite interesting and important jobs, and she did many things like that. In whether she was in family life, or as a vanaprastha, or as a monk, she was constantly working for God and Gurus, ceaselessly working. She formed, I think the count was either 5 or 7, one or the other, centres, like the Auckland Centre or the Sydney Centre or the Melbourne Centre, around the United States. She raised huge amounts of money from Bal Ashram. She was the principal of Bal Ashram at Baba's School for Children in India. She set up charities, she organized cultural programs, she hosted Guruji, she wrote the first of Baba's teachings. The first book of Shri Guruji's teachings that we have is because she wrote them. She collected them and edited them and put them together. She worked ceaselessly. And when she came to Melbourne, I have these memories. We would sit there. She would get there on a Friday morning, and it would constantly be work. It would be, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And after we had achieved, we had written PowerPoint presentations, we had written newsletters, we had written summaries, we had organized programs, we figured out who was going to cook what food, when, where, and how. And then at the end, she would sit back in the chair and she would say, we have been productive. And it was her productiveness was an offering to Shri Gurudev and Shri Guruji. So beautiful. Her name, Guru Priyananda, it means the bliss of being dear to the Guru. And I think we can learn a lot about what it takes to be dear to the Guru from Ma's life. Having hands always ready to work, having always a prayerful attitude and surrender to the Gurus. This is what makes you dear to the Guru. But for me, that aspect of Baba, constant work, it saw its incarnation. It had its expression through Ma. Very beautiful. I will continue on that family. Guru Priyananda Ma's husband, when she was married, also became a monk. Some of you have met Mata Kripanandaji? No one has met. Many people have not met. Mata Kripanandaji, he became a monk at the same time as Guru Priyananda Ma. So they both took sannyasi at the same time. They say Mata Kripananda Baba was a very tough man. Did you know him,
I know him, but I don't know whether he's tough.
Shri Guruji told me he was very tough. They say. Shri Guruji told me he was very tough. But I have to tell you, my experience is nothing like that. He is he is the expression of Guru's motherly love. His heart has been so melted like butter by the Gurus. It is beautiful. So I had met him, he came to inauguration of the Australian Ashram, so I met him briefly there. And then I would see him for like a day here or there on programs in the United States. But his love for me, like the care that he showed me, not his love for me, the care that he showed me was unbelievable. He was waiting there at the ashram close to the gate to make sure that he knew when I was there. He knew I was coming, so when I was coming, he was there. Have you taken food? Have you taken rest? I can carry you back. Baba, you're 80 something, you're not carrying my back. No, I'll come this way. You'll share the room with me. We'll go here. And then, it just constantly like a mother caring. And I have heard from some of the monks that, of course, all of our our beloved Swamis, they often get asked to pray for people. And I've heard that many of the monks take the prayers and they give them to Mata Kripanandaji because he's like a praying machine. He gets revving in the morning and he just goes. And he does prayers to Divine Mother, he prays for everybody for their upliftment. I have to tell you, one day we were just casually talking about family, like my parents, and later on that day he said, Baba, I have spoken to Divine Mother, I have prayed for your family, I have prayed, and I've done this, I've prayed for this, I've prayed for that. Just like this, just unbidden, he's like a love machine, he's like a prayer machine, really wonderful. And when Baba told me once he used to be quite tough, I cannot believe it. It doesn't make any sense to me to know him now. There's very little, it's all sweetness. So this is the effect that the Guru can have. And for me, Mata Kripanandaji is an expression of that motherly nature of the Gurus, Really, so nice. And selfless, that's selfless love. And let me tell you two other mothers who are very dear, and if you ever get the opportunity to be with them, you'll love it. I think she still is the president of Pragyana Mission, Guru Krupananji. She is an older mother. She's another monk who really has Baba, you can feel Baba's love in her, like that sweetness, that tender love. At the end of meditation in Barigai, if you go, and if she's there, there's a picture of Gurudev's feet there. And she stands by Gurudev's feet, and she touches his feet, and then she touches the head of the devotees. And everybody's so keen to have her loving touch. They line up across the whole hall, and people are coming to get just one little touch from her. And just the look, she strokes your face, and she just gives you that love, and she's taking Guru's blessing and giving it to you. This is, again, so beautiful. And she's handing out Guru's prasad to everybody. This is what a good disciple can do. So, in a similar vein, Nivama, who is Suresh Baba. Suresh Baba is one of the longest standing acharyas, yogacharyas in our tradition. He traveled a lot with Gurudev. In fact, if you look at any of the old videos of Gurudev, you'll see he's there as a young man, like very young man. He's now just about to turn 80, I think. I think that's right. I think this year he turns 80, or last year he turns 80. And he's the president of Kriya Yoga Institute, of the American organization. He's I think he's the longest standing yogacharya in US, very senior. But when you're with him, he's like a child. So I shared a room with him once, and I was sore from laughing, just constantly laughing with him. But his wife is Nivama. And in Baligai Ashram, not Baligai, sorry, in Miami Ashram, we had a fire ceremony one year. And at the end of the fire ceremony, everybody gets ash put on their forehead. And then people go inside to meditate. And when you go inside to meditate, it's beautiful carpeted, home of Gurudev. And so when we bow, ash can go very easily. So we're told, please be careful when you bow, not to get ash. And out of an abundance of caution, Ma goes and gets a piece of tissue paper, and she's taking the ash off people's head. And so she goes to one person who said, please take it off. And we are all watching. And she removes that ash with so much love. Then she says, anybody else? And everybody puts their hand down. Everybody wants Ma's loving touch, just to feel like her child. Very, very beautiful. So these mothers have really, again, taken on that sweetness of the Gurus. I just think it's very, very beautiful. So we've seen the incarnation of work. We've seen the incarnation of love for others. We've seen the incarnation of that loving care, incarnations of that loving care. I'd like to tell you about another great teacher in our lineage. His name is John Williams. He's the Yogacharya in New York. He has a very beautiful story. He ran into Gurudev when he was maybe 18 on the street in New York, and immediately fell in love with him. And John Williams Baba is a West Indian young man. And so now he's been with the Gurus, he's 60 something now. So he spent his life with the Gurus. So he spent time with Gurudev when he would visit. He would visit the ashram every now and then. Did a lot of work at the ashram. because he was young and strong back in those days, he says. But he didn't live with Gurudev. He didn't spend, he was like us. He met Gurudev. He spent good time with Gurudev, but didn't live in the ashram, nothing like that. Didn't live with Gurudev. For me, John Baba he has really worked out how to abide with the Gurus, how to really be in their presence. So you'll be sitting with John Baba, and then all of a sudden, and let me tell you the first time I spoke to John Baba. So I read Autobiography of a Yogi when I was in Australia. I immediately wanted initiation to Kriya Yoga. I found the website and I missed Guruji by like 2 weeks. And then about a month later, I moved to the United States for my graduate studies. I was living in Boston, and the first phone call that I made on my American phone, my American cell phone, my new American cell phone, outside the shop, the cell phone shop, was to John Baba. I would like to have initiation, please. And I have to tell you that when I first spoke to John Baba, I was 100% sure he was faking it. I said, there is no way that a human being is this loving. No way. This is a show. This is just, no way is this true. This can't be true. It didn't help that he kept, I wasn't sure, I must say, I was not always sure he was talking to me. So, he seemed like he was talking to Gurudev, he was talking to God, and every now and then I broke into the conversation. And it didn't help that he was calling me Baba, and at that stage I didn't realize we did that. So there was this constant, but I was left feeling like this guy is, whatever he's got, I probably want some of that juice, but I don't believe that this person is this loving. I really, honestly, I'm telling you very frankly, this is what I thought. But then, I think like 2 weeks later, I was in New York, I was having initiation, I was meeting Baba, everything was happening. So, very amazing series of experiences. But because I've done many intensives with John Baba, I would go as often as I could to New York from Boston to spend time with him. He was so sweet to me. He always opened his house, so I stayed with him many times. And so I had many amazing experiences with him. One time, more recently, we were sitting together at his kitchen table. We had dinner together, and we became very calm and quiet. And I noticed that both of us we were both clearly feeling very peaceful. We'd been speaking about Gurudev all day, Gurudev all day. We had spent all day walking around New York talking about the masters. And John Baba said, there's nothing like, he said earlier during the day, there's nothing like a couple of old friends walking around under the tree talking about the way of things and the Gurus. And he said, we just have to live with that old man. He kept saying that. He said, we have to abide with that old man. And so then after dinner, that sense of calmness and peace was there. And he said to me, do you feel that sense of peace? I said, yes, Baba. And he just said, abide in that state. His guided meditations are the best guided meditations. They're like Swamiji's. They're so peaceful and serene, very beautiful. So he then just gave a couple of short meditation instructions. Abide in that place. Let go of breath. These sorts of things. And we just sat there. And I don't know for how long we sat. But it was hours. And at the end, we both kind of started to rouse it around at about the same time. And he said, beyond Mahamudra, beyond Kriya Pranayam, this is abiding with the Gurus. And he thinks about that all the time. This is how he tries to live. And he said, when this feeling comes, always take the opportunity to stay with it. Never miss that opportunity. He said, this is what Gurudev was talking about when he said opportunity must not be neglected. And so, for me, John Baba has this amazing ability to, in his daily life and in all kinds of ways, abide with the Gurus, stay with the Gurus, even though his time was not extensive living with the Gurus, but he lives every moment of his life, he abides every moment with the Gurus. So I think a very beautiful, for me he's an example of that, abiding in the Gurus. A very wonderful and a great promise to us that we can just practice, keep going. I often say, Baba, any tips, any suggestions, any advice? He said, just follow on, and abide. So, John Baba, I think for me, maybe because he's the first Kriya Yoga I met, but for me, he's a pure disciple. When I think of discipleship, I think of him. When I think of how I would like to be, I think of him. And one last example for you. This is a little bit mystical and mysterious, but it's nice. So one of the intensives that I had done in New York with John Baba, Elizabeth Trachenberg, I always put an R in where there's not meant to be, another old disciple of Sri Gurudev. She and he were co-teaching this intensive. And it was really a wonderful intensive, because I got to see two long-standing disciples of Gurudev. They love each other, they're like brother and sister. But they don't agree on everything. And so they would have in the intensive, they would be having these debates about the proper attitude. Well, Gurudev said this, but no, Gurudev said that. But how do you make that? It was so beautiful. I was thinking, this is how great disciples should be. They should be, no one's leading, no one's higher, no one's lower. They're just sharing from their heart their experiences and arm in arm racing forward towards their Guru. I just thought it was such a beautiful example. And they were like children. And I would get offered, because I was staying with John Baba for this thing, I had every meal with them. So I was often in this strange situation where I was tired. Like, they're like, well, what do you think, Vishaal? I was like, I have no idea. The only thing I know about the Gurus is from you guys. So, and so it was really special. But I wanted to give you that example because for me, it's a beautiful example of how the disciples should be with other disciples, just in that loving way. There were a small number of us sitting here last night just talking about God after Baba left. And it had that same feeling for me. We were just talking, we were just sharing, beautiful. But Elizabeth Ma, there was one point where John Baba and she were talking about doing things with complete attention. You know, when Swamiji guides us in meditation, and he asks us to move with attention, with careful attention, with complete attention, move your body. So they were talking about that. And John Baba said to Elizabeth, do the thing with the paper. And so the thing with the paper was, she said, it said there's a piece of paper over here. She moved it from this side of her body to that side of her body with complete attention. And I have to tell you, as she did that, I had a very strange experience. So she just picked this paper up with complete attention, and she picked it up and she moved it across and she put it down there. And for me, everything disappeared in the world apart from her and that paper. It was like everything fell away, it was amazing. And I looked at her, and this is why it's a little bit mystical and whatever, but I'm just sharing with you very honestly. I could see her face, but I'm sure I could see Gurudev's face. I could see his face there. And I just thought, amazing. When she brings her full attention, she really does feel Gurudev in her body moving. And not to say anything about anything, I'm not trying to interpret this in one way or another, but just to say, when a disciple moves with complete attention and focus on their guru, they become their guru in all kinds of ways. That was what I had learned from that. So she felt like her guru. Really amazing. So all of this is to say, I think it is absolutely possible, looking at the promise of our older brothers and sisters who have gone before us on this path, I think it's absolutely possible for us to achieve discipleship in this life, living in the world as we do, going about our business, but following on and abiding in the gurus. There are many other great people we could talk about. I could take a whole nother cycle of lectures on that, but we'll do that next time. But there's one beautiful story to finish with. It's a story from one of the disciples of Neem Karoli Baba. We talked about him earlier. So Neem Karoli Baba left his body in the 70s, 72 or 73 or something like that, I think. And so many of his disciples were just left without him. And those who were disciples of Sri Gurudev may also have felt that for some time as well. And of course we are in a situation where our Guru is just going overseas, so we're much luckier, much easier. But these disciples of Neem Karoli Baba ran all over India, meeting with sadhus and saints, trying to figure out how they could be in touch with their Guru. And one of the students went to a forest master, like a master who was living in the forest. And he asked him, how can I be closer to my Guru? And there was a translator there. And it took a moment, I had to get translated a couple of times because the sadhu wasn't understanding. And then he just started laughing, like uproariously laughing. And this disciple the Western disciple was like, what's he laughing at? Why is he, have I done something wrong? And he just kept laughing and laughing and laughing. And he said something which then got translated back around. And he said, what are you talking about? Your Guru is looking through your eyes at me right now. And I think it's very beautiful. Your Guru is looking through your eyes right now. When you walk out of this retreat place, your Guru is walking through your feet right now. When you go back to your home and you're caring for your family, your Guru is caring for your family through those hands right then. When you go to work, when you take your breath, when you eat your food, your Guru is doing all of that from within, right now. What to miss? How to miss him? I once said to Guruji when he had left Australia, Baba, missing you, Baba. And he just started laughing. And he said, what nonsense, what to miss? And my hope is we all can practice like this. And when Guruji comes back and he looks at us in the eye, he says, oh, you've come so far. And when we look at him, we say, oh, Baba, now you're outside as well. Please close the eyes. Oh God, oh Masters, we've had a beautiful time together, sitting at your feet and in your presence, thinking about the special relationship between us. Please help us to be worthy disciples of your love. Help us to walk the path ceaselessly that you have laid before us. Help us to be oriented towards you, so we can capture the grace that is constantly shining.